Hello. I just watched a video from GED Jack, which was entertaining as expected. It was the mayor kicks TX Sheepdog 72 out of a city hall meeting or city council meeting or whatever. They kicked him out. Well, they stopped him from talking because he ran out of time. I don't know exactly why they kicked him out, but I think they might have kicked him out because he kept talking and then started calling people motherfuckers. That might have something to do with why I got kicked out, but I don't exactly know for sure. So our boy Jack gets allowed to go up to the little podium. There's a 3-minute timer that's very clear in front of him. He has 3 minutes. They let him speak for the 3 minutes and then they ask him to leave. And then they ask him to move away from the podium because there's another citizen who wants to speak, who wants to exercise their 3 minutes. And 3 minutes is a ridiculously small amount of time for any complicated issue, but whatever. And then Jack calls the city council motherfuckers, and he's gonna hold all of them motherfuckers. And I think he was gonna say accountable, but who knows? I mean, it's a Texas sheepdog pipe dream, whatever he's gonna do. So let's discuss the substance of his issue that he brought up with the city hall. Number one was the arrest of a man handing out business cards on some sort of a plaza walkway in the city. The man was, or cited, I guess, cited under there's a handbill ordinance that you can't hand out handbills. And there is an exception. It does not apply to political speech, to political handbills, religious handbills, or charitable handbills. And he says the officer wrote the citation. Supervisor approved it. It had a Bible verse. It was a business card, Jack's words, business card with a Bible verse on the back. Or with a Bible verse printed on it, I should say. Maybe not on the back. I might be adding that. So a business card with a Bible verse. Is that a religious handbill, or is that a business? Is that a commercial? Is it commercial speech or religious speech? Commercial speech has significantly lower protections than religious or political speech do. Whatever. You get me. That's the government has the right to control when, where, why, and how people advertise. It's just something that the government gets to do. It's an intermediate scrutiny test. So he says that the case against this guy was dismissed. So what is the issue? There is a question. Did the handbill, statute, ordinance, whatever, apply? The officers thought it might. The court or the prosecutor thought it didn't, and it was dismissed. Probably the prosecutor thought it didn't and dismissed it. Problem solved. What is the problem? His big issue with the police, number two, was that a Banditos member was cited or arrested for having a 1%er patch. I don't know. I assume the Banditos are classified as a criminal organization. I'm going to assume that because they classify themselves as outlaws. They call themselves an outlaw biker gang. As far as I know, 1% means that they're part of one of the outlaw biker clubs. The officer's affidavit said that it could cause an immediate breach of the peace. And Jack thinks that the law requires it to cause an immediate breach of the peace. But then they wouldn't be arrested for the patch. They would be arrested for the actual violence, the breach of the peace. As far as I know, and I haven't seen whatever ordinance, because I don't know what ordinance or statute the guy was arrested under. Jack doesn't specify. But typically, the way those ordinances are written, those statutes are written, is that it has to tend to incite an immediate breach of the peace. Tend to incite. Language that tends to incite an immediate breach of the peace. It doesn't actually have to incite an immediate breach of the peace. It just has to tend to. So if a white supremacist rolls up into the middle of a black church and starts yelling the N-word at the top of his lungs, and the congregation doesn't react because, you know, they feel like it's their Christian duty to turn the other cheek, the white supremacist could still get arrested for having gone in there and using language that would tend to incite an immediate breach of the peace. Just because it didn't doesn't make the language all of a sudden acceptable. Now, do I think a 1% patch on a bandito is not protected speech? My gut instinct is that it shouldn't be, but then there's another part of me that says anything gang related, anything gang affiliated may cause a member of a rival gang to immediately breach the peace. Oh, you're a Banditos member. I'm a, I don't know, Hell's Angels member. I'm going to shoot you because of your patch. So maybe, I mean, that's a margin call. Should the officer cite people over that? Well, we don't know all the surrounding details. I have a distinct impression that had it just been, you know, some nerdy accountant looking dude wearing a Banditos jacket that said 1% on it, probably the cop wouldn't have thought twice about it. I'm guessing that the cop was there for a reason and that there was an issue, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? We just don't have enough information from Jack's description to really get into the meat of the matter. And then Jack goes on to Jesus Padilla. He's complaining about the police and Jesus Padilla, but here's the problem, Jack. Jesus Padilla was convicted. So the police did the right thing. There's not even a question about it. They did the right thing. Because the courts found, and the courts are the ultimate determiners of what the law is and what the constitutionality of laws are, the court determined that Jesus Padilla did, in fact, use language that tends to incite immediate breach of the peace. But Jack's issue with that is that the municipal court does not give people who are facing Class C misdemeanors, which are payable by fine only. There's no jail time associated with it. They don't get attorneys. They don't get court-appointed attorneys. And, well, they don't have to. They literally don't have to. Constitutionally speaking, they have to provide an attorney if you get 1 day of jail time. Then retroactively, they had to supply you with an attorney. You had to give you the opportunity for an attorney. If you can't afford one, they have to appoint one for you, blah, blah, blah. But that is if you are actually sentenced to 1 or more days of jail time or prison time. If prison isn't an option, if jail isn't an option, if incarceration isn't an option, then they're under no obligation to provide you with an attorney. If incarceration is an option, but they only sentence you to jail time or to a fine, then they never had to supply you with an attorney in the first place. And so it's not a violation of your constitutional rights. Now, is it pay to play? Well, that's debatable. If you believe, like a lot of the sovereign citizens do, that they are as good as attorneys, that they understand the law as well as attorneys, and that they know how to argue the law as well as attorneys, then not giving somebody access to an attorney doesn't change anything. But apparently Jack believes, rightfully so, that attorneys know the law and they know the system and they know how to craft legal arguments and they know how to do legal research and they know how to understand the things that they're reading in their legal research. And they do better. Your odds of getting found not guilty or getting your case dismissed increase when you have an attorney. But Jack's representation that he's being charged with exact same thing as Padilla, and Padilla has already gone through his trial and Jack hasn't, and that somehow because Jack has an attorney and Padilla doesn't, I'm not entirely sure of. I mean, if Jack's attorney is requesting continuances, then okay, but the ultimate test will be, number one, if Jack goes to court and it doesn't appear that the city is going to drop the prosecution if it's been over a year and it's still pending. And number two, if they do go to court, whether or not Jack prevails. But Jack isn't charged with the exact same thing because Jack used different language, different wording at different times. So to say that it's the exact same thing, I mean, he was there at the same time, he was there at the same place, but he didn't say the same thing, so it's not exactly the same. And finally, Jack has a misunderstanding. Maybe it's intentional, but he has a misunderstanding about what apparent authority is. When Jack was being trespassed from the city council chambers, Jack wanted to know who was trespassing him. Well, he knew that the guy who was telling him he had to leave, he knew that guy worked for City Hall. That guy has apparent authority. There was a cop there waiting to escort him out. The cop had apparent authority. He doesn't have to know who had the actual authority to trespass him, because I would assume that the officer had the authority to trespass him from city property. I think the city council employee probably had the authority as well. But the officer and the employee certainly had apparent authority. But they were very nice. I mean, they complied with Jack's request to find out who actually requested that Jack be trespassed. So at the end of the day, let's look at what Jack was attempting to accomplish, or apparently attempting to accomplish. He was apparently attempting to influence city council into taking some sort of action against the police. Jack succeeded in getting himself trespassed and succeeded in making an ass out of himself. I mean, the city council didn't look bad. He's the one who started yelling motherfucker. The city council didn't look bad. They let him say his piece. They gave him his full 3 minutes, and then they asked him to step away from the podium to allow other citizens to speak. And Jack's gonna put them all on notice. All these motherfuckers, put them all on notice with his GED Jack. The funniest thing in there, Jack said, "I only have a GED. And I can even understand, with my eyes closed, reading the handbill statute. I could understand with my eyes closed reading the statute. Unless GED Jack has learned how to read Braille, which I doubt. I think that he's just spouting nonsense, because that was the dumbest thing ever. I have a GED, and even I can understand reading this bill with my eyes closed what it means." Retarded. Anyway, my present to Jack is some advice. I advise you that when you do go into city council meetings, you may notice that there was no audience there. There were like 3 or 4 people. Your real audience is the council. That is your audience. If you alienate your audience, you have wasted your time and theirs. So I suggest that before you go in the next time, you prepare your statements. You practice your statements. You make sure that you can say your piece within the 3-minute allotted time. You end with thank you, because that's going to make you seem more civilized. It might endear you more to the city council. And try to make sense. Try to actually have a clear idea of what you are asking them to do. Because I listened to what you wanted or what you were saying, and I don't know what you were asking them to do. Start with, members of the city council, I am here today to ask you to do X, Y, and Z, and here's why. 1, 2, 3. Therefore, please consider doing X, Y, and Z. Thank you. You might have better luck with it. You'll probably get fewer YouTube views, which may be the real reason, but you might have better luck with it. Also, I also suggest that you don't go in scrubs. I mean, that just looks tacky, and maybe make an effort to look presentable when you go in. Just public speaking. I know I'm just being an asshole. This is actual advice, though. If you follow this advice, I think you'll get better results. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.